The call came at 7:47 in the morning, just minutes after the news broke across every sports network and social media feed in the country. Tiger Woods was still at his Jupiter Island compound, deep in the slow and deliberate recovery from his October back surgery, when his phone lit up with alerts that sent something cold through him. Collin Morikawa, the hottest player on the PGA Tour, the FedEx Cup points leader, the man who had just strung together 13 consecutive rounds under par, had been carted off the 11th tee at TPC Sawgrass after a single practice swing. One routine movement, one awful, familiar moment of the body simply refusing to cooperate. And just like that, the entire Masters picture had shifted. For the better part of an hour, Woods didn't leave his chair. He watched the footage repeatedly, read every report that came through, and then, in a moment of candor that felt almost out of character, he picked up the phone and spoke directly to the young man living through a nightmare he knew better than anyone alive. March 12th, 2026 had begun with every indication of being a landmark week for Morikawa. He arrived at TPC Sawgrass, carrying the kind of momentum that makes oddsmakers nervous. A victory at Pebble Beach, a top 10 finish at Riviera, a solo fifth place at Bay Hill just 4 days before teeing it up in Ponte Vedra Beach. He was the FedEx Cup leader, ranked 4th in the world, and the betting markets had already slashed his odds from 33 to 1 down to 16 to 1 before the opening round even began. His 8:40 morning tee time on the 10th hole went exactly as planned. He striked his drive, stuck his approach to 11 feet, and rolled a birdie putt that just grazed the edge before settling in for a clean tap in par. Solid, unhurried, the kind of start that builds quiet confidence. He walked to the 11th tee, feeling nothing unusual. No warning signs, no stiffness, no hint of what was about to happen. He pulled his driver, took one practice swing, and everything stopped. The broadcast cameras caught him grabbing at his lower right side, muttering under his breath. He walked to the back of the tee box and tried to stretch through it, called for his trainer, consulted with his caddy, but the truth was already clear to him before any of those conversations began. He had felt this before. He knew what it meant. "I just couldn't get through impact," he said afterward. After a brief discussion with his team, the decision was made. Morikawa, the hottest player on the planet and one of the tournament's most compelling storylines, was withdrawing after completing just one hole. He gave quiet embraces to his playing partners Ludwig Aberg and Sepp Straka, climbed into a golf cart, and was driven back toward the clubhouse while the gallery stood in the kind of stunned, uncomfortable silence that follows moments nobody wanted to witness. Woods did not call immediately. For the first hour, he simply watched. He watched the practice swing, watched the grimace, watched the cart disappear down the path. He had lived inside that exact moment more times than the public fully comprehends. 7 back surgeries, a spinal fusion, a disc replacement as recently as October 2025 after scans revealed a collapsed disc fragments, and a compromised spinal canal. He understood what Morikawa was feeling in that cart ride back to the clubhouse in a way that required no translation. Not the physical pain specifically, but the particular dread of not knowing the severity, not knowing the timeline, not knowing whether the next swing you take in competition will be the one that undoes everything again. When he finally made the call, he didn't offer empty reassurances. "I've been there," he told Morikawa, according to people familiar with the conversation. "I know what you're feeling right now. The frustration, the fear, the not knowing. It's the worst part of this game." The parallels were painful to observe from the outside. Morikawa had spent the entire offseason targeting his lower back with specific and intentional work, building strength and mobility, focused on his ability to separate his upper and lower body and maintain his posture through impact. He had spoken openly about these goals heading into the season, and through Pebble Beach, Riviera, and Bay Hill, it had appeared to be working. 13 consecutive rounds under par is not a number produced by someone whose body is betraying them. And yet here was the same issue, resurfacing at the most prominent possible moment, undoing a week that had every reason to be special. "I've had this stuff before and been healthy all throughout the year," Morikawa said in the immediate aftermath, the frustration audible in every word. The déjà vu was inescapable, A similar episode at the 2021 Tokyo Olympics, another at the 2023 Memorial Tournament, and now this. For Woods, the pattern carried echoes he recognized without any effort. He had spent the better part of 2 decades trying to stay one step ahead of his own spine, only to be reminded at each turn that the body does not negotiate on your schedule. His career had been interrupted so many times and in so many devastating ways that his mere presence at any tournament had long since become a story in itself. What he carried into that phone call was not sympathy in the conventional sense, but something closer to brotherhood, the shared understanding of a person who has had their body announce, without warning and without apology, that today is not the day. "Trust me, I would play if I could," Morikawa had said, his voice tight with the effort of holding himself together. Woods had said those precise words from hospital beds, from living rooms, from everywhere except the courses he wanted to be competing on. The question that consumed the golf world in the 48 hours that followed was the one everyone was quietly dreading to ask out loud. Would Morikawa be ready for Augusta? The Masters was 28 days away. For weeks to go from a severe back spasm on a tournament tee box to walking 18 undulating holes at Augusta National under the most psychologically demanding conditions in the sport, for rounds of that, with no margin for physical doubt. The early medical assessment offered a careful measure of hope. The indication from those close to the situation was that the issue appeared to be muscular rather than structural, a serious spasm rather than a disc or nerve problem. That distinction is not a minor one. Muscular injuries respond to rest, treatment, and progressive loading in a way that structural damage simply does not. Surgery was not being discussed. Recovery was. Justin Thomas, who had worked his way back from a microdiscectomy and returned to competition at the Arnold Palmer Invitational just weeks before the Players' Championship, offered a perspective that resonated beyond his own situation. Golf, he noted, is a sport where elite players can compete at the highest level well into their 40s, which means decisions made about rushing back from injury carry weight that extends far beyond any single tournament. The logic applied directly to Morikawa, who at 29 has the vast majority of his career still ahead of him. The Masters is the Masters, but it is also one tournament among many that will define a long and still developing career. Perspective, however, is difficult to access when you are the one sitting in the clubhouse watching the field play on without you. By Friday, the spasms had quieted enough for Morikawa to move without significant pain. By Saturday, he was chipping in his backyard. By Sunday, while Cameron Young was accepting the trophy at TPC Sawgrass, Morikawa was hitting full wedge shots for the first time since the withdrawal. His trainer relayed the update to Woods in a text that read simply, "Progress. Slow but steady." The window for Augusta was narrow, but it had not closed. 28 days is not a comfortable amount of time, but it is not an impossible one either, and the medical picture was trending in the right direction. Woods, asked whether he believed Morikawa would make it to the first tee at Augusta, answered without hesitation. "He'll be there," he said quietly. "If there's one thing I know about Colin, it's that he doesn't quit." The golf world, watching all of this unfold with the particular mix of dread and hope that back injuries always seem to produce, was counting on him being right.